Hey guys, Anderson here with SandyHill Outdoors, and today we're going to be speaking with Bug Long, also as my father, about some of his whitetail tactics and the way that it has paid off for him and have success in the woods. Please stay tuned to this video. Welcome everybody to the first SandyHill Outdoors podcast. We are very, very happy to bring this to the table this year. Today I have my father with me. We're going to do a big talk about whitetail today. And early October into late October into our now pre-rut strategies in the field. So Dad, in the early October, we're first starting to get our north wind moving in. And coming from bow season with warmer weather and more of a south wind, with it transitioning to this north wind. Now, how are you making your adjustment for scent control and stuff in the field?
Hey, before I answer that, I just want to say how proud I am to be on this first podcast like this. It means a lot to me to be sitting here watching you evolve as a hunter and outdoorsman. It means a lot to me. It's a special time to be here, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And so, hey, look, hunting here in central North Carolina, or particularly northern North Carolina, is much different than hunting some other places. Early on bow season, most time you get in the south wind, it's consistent day after day after day after day, and you got to play that. And so if you think when the time changes and you start getting this north wind, sometimes even a north by east wind, you can't hunt the same stands. Mm-hmm. So when you're hunting a field or a food plot or even a baited pile, which is legal in North Carolina, it's impossible to just use one stand. So you have to have at least 2, if not 3 stand locations around the area so you can switch with ease when that wind direction changes.
For scent control, a lot of the wind switches a lot, and we're having a strong wind, and some days we're blowing out of the northeast, some days we're blowing out of the northeast, west, south, whatever. What is your main thing when it comes to scent control that you do to prepare to go sit and stand?
That's a great question. And here where we hunt, central North Carolina, like I said, the wind changes direction, it even swirls at times. We got so many trees, it's not open land like it is out in the Midwest where you got large fields, or even down in eastern North Carolina, particularly when you get close to the coast, when you got a predominant wind coming out of the water and pushing it. This area, the wind swirls a lot. So scent control, particularly bow hunting, is paramount. There's a lot of great products out there today that you can spray your clothes down with. You can wash your clothes. Good old baking soda's been something that's been used for a long time to help take away the human scent. But hey, look, at the end of the day, your head, your hair, particularly someone who has a lot of hair, I don't, but particularly somebody who has a lot of hair, that is paramount. To keep your head, no sprays, no high scented washes, hairspray, these things like this, dead giveaway. Keeping yourself scent free is paramount to getting close to big bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. With me starting bow hunting this year, scent control was a big thing for me.
Absolutely.
It was very hot this September, and thankfully, in 1st of October here, it is starting to get very, very cool. I think this morning we were sitting like the mid 40s, high 40s. But one of my biggest things is I remember back in 2019, the buck muley, the almighty, the king of kings. He was just the buck that you were chasing after for, I believe, 3 years. That was, I believe, mid-November. I believe when you shot that, we were getting into good hard rut around this area. So when that changed into that hard rut, what adjustments did you make into rut compared to pre-rut?
Well, unfortunately, I got busted a couple of times by muley and left my stand a couple of times, and had a camera out in the field, and he actually was in the field 5 to 8 minutes after I'd walked out, so I knew he was there. And a lot of people give credit and they talk about whitetail deers, how smart they are. I'm not saying they're not smart. I think they're more scared than they are smart because they know we're a predator. So a big tactic there was, some products out there that you can place on your feet and things like that. The biggest thing that helped me harvest muley was changing my stand location and putting it across a creek to where the creek carried my scent away. And I had a food plot and an acorn grove on the opposite side of the creek. And that coupled with scent control, there's no doubt about it. Changing tactics at that time helped me harvest that deer. No doubt.
So with this amount to this deer is what you said. This deer I believe was scored around the 160s, high 160s. Just a buck of a lifetime for where we're from. And one thing that I had noticed when I was younger, some of the people that you would talk to, and you trying to figure out, well, I've had him here in this field eating corn, now I've had him here eating in this acorn grove. If I'm remembering this correctly, you pretty much set up in that middle spot on that creek.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out, it was a good spot to where he was coming back and forth to feed, rutting his area. I mean, was that one of the biggest things when you thought about putting that stand location there? That was one of the things you thought about, was his back and forth to each food source?
Absolutely. And I look back at how hunting is today, particularly whitetail hunting, how it was years ago when I first started. Cameras have certainly assisted people in knowing how deer approach a field.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you use them, you can see the staging areas that people used to talk about. People say staging areas. Well, there's no doubt that deer will congregate and stage in the area before they walk out into a food source, especially in an area like this where we have a lot of pressure on deer. So getting close to a bedding area, but not too close, and setting up in a staging area, I think has been a great success for a lot of people, including me. Very fortunate to harvest that deer, changing tactics. I didn't like it to begin with, but it paid off. So I think moving a little bit closer to an area where deer are moving before they get out into an open area or an open acorn grove like that deer was in, I think it's paramount. Getting close enough, but not getting too close.
Yeah. So about the time you shot Muley, it was late November. Things were I remember that year things were very wound up. A lot of deer were moving, and I would like to know, when that season started winding down and you could tell when the rut was dying off, was there anything that you tried to do to go hunt another deer during that late rut?
That's a good question. I look back to years ago, and when I grew up, there wasn't big deer here. There wasn't. There's a few here and yonder, but not like it is today. And so you listen to a lot of what the hunters that was before you said. A lot of it was misinformation. Around here, we have a buck-doe ratio that's traditionally off. It's more does than it is mature bucks here. It's a lot more mature does than it is here. So I think that hunt where the does are. I mean, that's it. Hunt where the big nanny does are, because the big bucks are going to look for them. They come into estrus, and we don't have a hard rut. It's not like we have a rut here that's just 2 weeks and that's it. We have a trickling rut. Mm-hmm. Maybe not every year, but it's harder sometimes than others. But the rut lasts over a period of time here, much different than it does out in the Midwest.
Yeah, and I remember last year, that season, the rut was very weird last year. It was very late. We had some warmer temps going into November and late October, and it kind of just threw the deer off. And I remember going back when we were duck hunting, really, we'd be walking out and it'd be January and there was bucks chasing does through fields still in January, compared to like the year that you shot Muley, that 1st of January, they were done.
Absolutely.
It was crazy.
And to not to mean to cut you off, but look, does are going to come into estrus generally the same time every year. People say, oh, the weather's keeping the does from coming into estrus. No, it's not. The weather affects deer movement, and when it's warm during the day, they're going to move at night when it's cooler. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change whether the doe comes into estrus or not at certain times. They do it every year, year after year after year. When you don't see deer movement during the day, it's because it's warm. Mm-hmm. When you have some cold fronts coming in, when it turns cold, deer movement goes up. Their body temperatures are higher than ours. They don't like it when it's hot. They're not going to move as much when they're hot. But when that cold snap comes, be ready. That's the time.
Guys, hunt your cold snaps.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, I've done it. He's done it. All your big name hunters around here, if you know anything about when that first cool October air hits, late bow season going into muzzleloader, those deer are going to start getting wound up and wound up quick. I have seen it firsthand. It's something that y'all need to pay attention to. So, I know for the past, I believe, off and on the past 4 years, roughly, you've been taking some trips out to Kansas. You know, from hunting rut here, hunting pre-rut, post-rut, around this area, man, what are some of those key differences that when you leave this state and go out there that you see that are so weird and crazy compared to what it's like back home?
You can't even compare whitetail hunting, particularly during the rut, from here to somewhere in the Midwest, whether it be Kansas, Illinois, Iowa, Ohio. Not so much Ohio. Ohio's some similarities, but hey, you get out in the Midwest, they have a hardcore rut. These bucks are chasing, they're foaming at the mouth, they're running hard. The rut is intense. It's super intense out there. Not so much here. Mm-hmm. It's we got a lot of does.
Yeah,
and absolutely. That's just the way it is. But out west, totally different dynamic.
Yeah. So, matter of fact, if you say that, did you bring any tactics from back home out to Kansas that paid off with these 2 deer that you have bringing home with you in your last 2 trips?
The biggest thing I've learned, whether it be here, whether it be Canada, whether it be the Midwest here in the United States, scent control.
Yeah.
Paramount. Scent control is paramount.
How was your scent control out in Kansas compared to how it was here?
Well, out in Kansas and the Midwest, you have
fields.
You get straight line winds. Mm-hmm. You get straight line winds, and you have stand locations, and you just, same as here, if the wind is wrong, no matter how nice that buck is that you want to harvest, if the wind is wrong, don't do it.
Did you bring any tactics from while you were out in Kansas back home to pay off?
Well, absolutely. I mean, going back to wind direction, that's paramount. Wind direction is paramount. Can't compare it to here because they have straight line winds.
What is something that you've learned as you were out there for the 2 weeks or ever how long you're out there in Kansas that you would sit there in the stand and notice things and do things so you're like, man, if I come back home to my home turf, can I do this right here back home and see success out of it?
I think the biggest difference you're going to see is, you know, we think we live in the country here, and we do. And I'm so blessed to have grown up being outdoors, you know, whether it be rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, quail hunting, deer hunting, duck hunting. But you're in a different world out there. Yeah. You're looking at open farmland, and it is very, very remote compared to here. So, you know, here in central North Carolina, we like to think we live in the country, but Midwest, the flyover states, that's big country. Yeah. Big harvests, cornfields, bean fields for miles and miles and miles. They had an abundance of food, and they don't have the trees that we have around here. Yeah. So hunting is just so much different.
So after deer season, you know, me and you do a lot of shed hunting. Start walking around the bedding areas, the trails, the food source. After season is, you know, getting some of these sheds, and you can learn a lot from sheds by deer's growth. I mean, there's been multiple years where me and you have gone out and found the same buck sheds 2 years, 3 years in a row just to see that growth. I mean, what importance is that to you every year going out, walking miles and miles a day, week, however, finding these and learning about these? What does that mean to you for the next upcoming season?
Well, you know, after deer season, after duck season, there's a little lull there before spring, before turkey season comes around, which we love to hunt turkeys.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're the king of spring. But getting back to that, yeah, it's a time to get outdoors. And also, when you find a shed like that, maybe there was a time you didn't see that deer. Maybe somebody else saw that deer on another property adjoining yours, or maybe even a mile away, and you wonder where that deer, you know, the deer ghosted us. But here you go, here in February, and you find his shed again after a long time he's been gone. And I think, for me, nothing else will captivate my imagination when that happens.
Yeah.
When you find that shed of that big deer that you hunted, that you didn't see for I don't know, half of November and all of December, and all of a sudden you find this shed laying there in a food plot, or the acorn grove, or a station, a feeding station.
Creek
and
bottom.
you find the creek bottom.
We found a lot of sheds in creek bottom.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing, guys, that I have learned, and he will tell you just as well. Deer work those creek bottoms like a highway, a river source, a creek. Them deer, it's like a travel point. That's like a subway for them. You know, they can get on that creek and they can go, and that's very important to know, because we have some sand locations on the river or on the creek or whatever. We might not shoot a lot of deer out of it, but you will notice the more and more traffic of these deer coming in and out of there. So this upcoming shed season and deer season, because we're just in the early part of the season. If you got a good creek system on your property, just go out there when they put up a camera. You know, see if something's working it, because I'm telling you from experience, it really does pay off. And you know, the biggest thing with sheds, I don't remember if it was, I think it was the year after you shot Muley. We had this buck on the farm. His nickname was Caribou. And Caribou looked like a caribou. I mean, you couldn't get any better pictures of this deer. And this deer was just not very active. He was an old deer, you know, rough estimate, seeing him in the past. He was probably 9.5 years old the year that he passed away. That we think he did, because we don't know anybody who shot him. This deer was just old, you know, and you could tell that this deer really had some power to him. You know, he would walk out in a field or something on these trail cameras, and you see all the does and small bucks just run off the field. And he wasn't nothing big, but you know, that I found that shed the year before he died. I believe it was the year that little bit right before he started really making his way out, and he just disappeared. And you know, me and Dad were walking a creek bottom. We come up on a ridge, and I just noticed something, 75, 80 yards away. You could just see something that, and I'll give y'all a really quick tactic when it comes to shed hunting. Look for something wrong. Look for something that's not supposed to be there. Because if you're looking for a deer, like a shed itself while you're shed hunting, you will walk over so many. And you walk over so many anyway, but you know, when you're walking in a green field and you see something brown, that's a telltale sign that something like that is not supposed to be in a green field. Look for that all through the woods. And getting back to the caribou, you know, I immediately bolted to that deer, to that shed.
Yep.
And I knew it was him. I knew it from that far away. And that was the only piece, any value besides pictures that we have of this deer. And it was just such a special thing, especially you being there. It was crazy. It was just.
I think it was a great time. You know, that deer was not a trophy deer, so to speak, but it was a deer that we had seen for a long time on the farm. Very few daylight pictures of him.
Yeah.
Very few.
Very few.
We never saw him, huh?
I saw him one time.
Yeah, I think so.
It was late afternoon. Matter of fact, it was only about 150 yards away from where I ended up finding his shed an entire year later. So he was really in that piece of that property hard, and that's something about mature bucks. You know, even during rut, and this will be shocking to a lot of y'all. A lot of bucks are territorial around here. You know, they might run off a long ways for rut, but they always like to come back to that center mass, to where they were.
Come back home.
They want to be back. Younger bucks, smaller bucks, they're going to disperse. They might switch up a whole different plan. But when these bucks get to know where their safe spot is in the 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 year old range, especially in the 4.5 to 5, they get very territorial. And you know, coming out of that summer year, getting into the first bit of bow season, a lot of people are just, especially in this day and time, man, they're wanting just to shoot these deer for the antlers. They want to shoot these trophy bucks. You know, my trophy buck ain't your trophy buck. His trophy buck might not be my trophy buck. Man, enjoy your kill. Enjoy your harvest. You know, good Lord put these things on this earth for us to enjoy. You know, not to, I guess you could say, use and abuse. You know, if you're happy with a 4-pointer, well, hey, that's your deer. That's your trophy. You know, it's just, people need in this day and time to enjoy more about these deer than just what the Lord put on their head.
I couldn't agree more. I look at, wildlife, it's the same way I grow a garden. You've got to prepare the soil.
Yeah.
You've got to tend to it. You've got to go out and maybe take a hoe sometimes and kill the weeds.
Yeah.
Same thing about your wildlife on your property. You and I are responsible for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody needs to know we have a responsibility as conservationists.
Yeah.
Some people, tout, I don't like hunters. Let me tell you something. We wouldn't have what we had today if it wasn't for hunters.
Absolutely.
Hunters were our first conservation.
And I'll add on to that, a lot of people, like you said, about hunting and everything, just, guys, imagine what would happen if we didn't have hunters. These deer would overpopulate us like crazy. It wouldn't be good for, the society itself. And that is something a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah. If it was, 1700s, that's different. People look at the car accidents every year. It's unfortunate. People get hurt.
Yeah.
Damage is done, crops, things like that. But we have to maintain a balance.
Absolutely.
And it's our responsibility to do that.
Absolutely. Getting back to everything, I can't get the muley buck out of my head. Just sitting there when I was younger. Funny story about this deer. This was Dad's bread and butter buck. This is the only thing he wanted. It was every day. This was the buck he's been chasing for, like we said, 3 years, I believe. Me and his mom, my grandma, were sitting in the Dollar Tree parking lot that late afternoon, and it was about 5 o'clock. And I remember Dad calling me, and I knew it immediately. I said, he killed that deer. And Dad would tell you the first thing I said, you killed him, didn't you? And he said, well, I shot him. I don't know if I killed him. And so me and Grandma went over there. But, growing up around hunting and everything, it really gives me a drive to do a little bit of everything. This podcast was one of them. Just spreading what I've learned throughout everybody and, all these people that I've met and got to hunt with, And back to the muley buck, what was some of your favorite times and points of trying to chase this deer?
Probably looking back, you were 12 years old when I shot muley. And, we made it fun preparing for him. You remember we had corn fights.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people, you go out to the stand, they don't want you to pee or urinate around the stand. They don't want you to do this and that.
And you don't have to go in quiet.
Yeah, you don't have to go in quiet. Just enjoy it, whatever it is. If it happens, it happens. Go out and have fun. We had corn fights. We stomped around. It doesn't really matter. Not then. When you're hunting, it's different. When you're in the stand, it's different. But if you can't make it fun, whoever you're introducing to the hunting world, if it's not fun, they're not going to stay and enjoy it and do it. If you want future hunters, if you want people to enjoy, have fun in the outdoors, it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
And for all the people who are quote unquote sticks in the mud, don't get out, take your shoes off and put these rubber boots on, that's been proven time and time again not to be true. So just get out and have fun. And be serious when you hunt, but have fun too.
That was the biggest thing. We had a lot of fun, preparing for this deer, and everything. And I just, like I said, I just remember getting that phone call and was like, yep, I knew it. And some good buddies of yours come over that afternoon, and I remember we rode back down there in the creek bottom where you shot him, and I remember you saying that I shot, and he was pretty much running. He had nose down. When you shot him, you said his nose dropped straight to the ground. So that you made.
He plowed the leaves. He plowed the leaves a little bit. Man, you had to hit him good, and I shot him with an old a muzzle loader, a 90 MK85.
Oldie.
Oldie by my standards anyway. But what a great experience. You were my first phone call.
Yeah.
And I knew you'd be excited about it, as well as my friends, and to go down there together and see where I shot the deer, all the memories, all the pictures, all the times, preparation for it, and then we ended up walking up on them together.
Yeah.
That
And
was a great
about the
experience.
walking up part, I remember we got down there in the creek, and we got up, we started walking, and this deer had run into a briar patch. And, Dad would tell you, and a lot of people I've done it for, I'm really good at, tracking deer. If they're not bleeding good. If something I don't know, it's just something that I was taught young and just figured it out. And I remember walking up on this deer, and the way he was laying, Dad was standing behind me, and Dad started freaking out because he thought this deer was still alive by the way he was laying. And I already knew he was freaking out anyway because he just shot the deer, and he starts freaking out even more. And I literally grabbed a stick and I threw it at the deer. I said, "He looks pretty dead to me." And I remember we set the gun down, and we all sat there and enjoyed the moment, at his final resting spot. And and one of the biggest things that gets me, especially harvesting a buck like that, is that you're the first person to ever put your hands on that deer. You're the first human to touch that deer, and that's that's a special thing, and it's special to anything. It's crazy to think about stuff like that. Because people just think, well, I shot a deer, let's throw it in the back of the truck and get skin it. It's a lot more to it. And I remember getting back that night, taking pictures and everything, and I think you're still freaking out then.
I was, you talking about putting your hands on the deer for the first time. Since people started utilizing cameras where you could actually study a deer, you could actually zoom in and identify a deer over and over, year after year, month after month, and then you recognize that deer on a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's something you don't want to harvest, but you still see him, whether it's a cut in the ear, the way his antlers grew, or maybe he's got a blemish on his right side or left side. But you identify these deers and you see them over and over and over. And I always said that what a great day to harvest that deer.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I guess I was almost saddened in a way that I'd never see him again.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things about everybody is that you hunt and hunt and hunt this deer, and Dad's famous line, it all comes down to 30 seconds. And after that 30 seconds is up, that's the last time you'll ride over there and go pull a camera card and you'll ever see that deer again.
Correct.
But it's even more special when you come up here late at night or wherever your trophy deer is mounted, and you sit there and you stare at him at the wall. He's yours now. That's the biggest thing where it comes into trophy. It is your trophy. If your trophy's a 160-inch deer, a 220-inch deer, or a 20-inch deer, it doesn't matter. If you get, I'm gonna say this to the great Sandy Brady, and I will remember this to the day I die. Don't ever think about mounting something over somebody else's opinion. If it makes you happy and you love the memory behind it, that's why you mount something. You don't mount it because it's cool, but you can, but you don't mount it because somebody says, well, I think you should mount it because why not? Well, if you think differently, then why would you do it? And that's one of the biggest things too about harvesting stuff. If you're not going to do something with it, why would you do it?
I agree with that. It's like whether you're in your house and you hang a picture on the wall, whether it be a family member or a friend, when you look at it, it brings back a memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
It brings back a great time. It brings back feelings, something that's special to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it's a great thing, whether somebody else feels that way about it or not. You do. And you can relive it every time you see it.
Yeah, and that's something else. It doesn't matter if you're deer hunting, turkey hunting, duck hunting, squirrel hunting. Find something in that time that you just enjoy. One of my biggest things now is that yes, I love to go out and hunt and pull the trigger, but there's some days where you just would like to sit behind your camera, watching birds work or watching deer rut. And it was something that I've got very, very big into. And it's something else about it, because you look at it at a different perspective. When you're behind a gun, you're thinking kill, 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 kill. when you're sitting with your own eyes under, behind your camera, you're thinking like, man, with these ducks, these deer, these turkeys, they do this when we're not even hunting them. It's crazy, it's just that thought of you're seeing what these birds do, deer do, whatever, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and when I look at you, what you're doing today, I'd like to think that a little bit of the inspiration came from me setting up.
Oh, your camcorders back in the early
days,
early 2000s,
things like that, and to do what you're doing, to take a still picture. Of course, I don't take anything away from that. Still pictures are 1,000 unspoken words.
Yeah, 100%.
But when you can capture that moment in a video with today's technology,
yeah,
and somebody can sit there, a family can sit there, friends can sit there, and relive a beautiful memory of being in God's outdoor world.
100%.
And give thanks to Him. We're very fortunate to be able to live in a country where we can bear arms, when we can hunt, when we can harvest an animal, and after that we have delightful meals.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, look, I love the deer I've shot, I love the ducks I've shot, I love the turkeys I've shot. They taste good too.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that over a meal.
Yeah, and hunters, all whatever you do, just be grateful for what you have.
Absolutely.
Be grateful that you get to wake up that morning or get off work that afternoon and just go sit, out there in God's, His Mother Nature. It's a special thing that us hunters get to do that some don't. And it's very, very, it's like you said, it's 1,000 words. It's just, you could sit there and talk about what the outdoor means to me all the time. And that was the biggest thing, growing up. When I was super young, of course I didn't, I wasn't like cuckoo crazy about it. The older I got.
Now, sometimes you want to go home.
Yeah. Yeah, but I got more of the concept of, more of the fact of why we do it, more than the fact of why we kill.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest things I learned.
I'm very, very, very happy to have you with me and to share those experiences like I shared with my granddaddy.
Yeah.
And my daddy. Some of the things that we hunted back then growing up, for instance, quail.
Yeah. We don't have hardly any
quail
quail around here anymore.
So that was something you're not going to get to experience.
Yeah.
And at the same time, growing up, we didn't have the deer we have here now. So, enjoy the animal, the game, the quarry, if you will.
Yeah.
What's there at the time. And go out and enjoy it and have fun. Have a good time. Be respectful of the game. Be respectful for the people around you. And just go out and enjoy a great time in God's outdoors.
And like I said before, and I especially am very much thankful to have you on this first series of the Sandy Hill Outdoors podcast. Telling everybody about your whitetail tactics and how it's paid off. And thank you for tuning in to the show.